Hi everyone, welcome back. It's nice to see you all again. How are you? Now, in the last two lessons we looked at two different IELTS questions describing a line graph, a bar graph, pie charts. Today we're going to move forward and look at what's slightly more complicated, and we're going to describe a table. Now, it's only slightly more complicated, so most of this lesson will be in the same procedure as the other two lessons, but there are some slight differences. So, as usual, we're going to start by looking at the question. Then we're going to look at the table itself and interpret the information that's given. And then we will look at the language in the question and the table, paraphrasing it, using useful vocabulary. And then looking at the data in the table itself and trying to understand what's going on to be able to describe those trends and to compare the information that we're given. And within this, we will need some useful vocabulary for balancing information. So we're going to look at some linking words. And you will see that because a table is organized slightly differently to a graph, this table is going to help us to create the paragraphs as we understand, as we start writing the descriptions of the trends and the data. So we're going to write the introduction and the main paragraphs as we go through the lesson. So, looking at the question. Now, this question is about cultural attractions in the UK. These are museums and galleries, and these particular museums and galleries in the table are situated in London, and they're the most popular museums and galleries probably in the country. Okay, and we're going to look at how different numbers of visitors to each of these galleries and museums are presented over 3 different decades. Okay, so we've got 1981, 1991 and 2001, and we're going to look at the number of people who actually visited in those years. Okay, so let's look at the table. Now, the table has lots of different elements, so the first thing I'll do is to describe what these different elements are. Vertically, running up and down, you've got columns, and our columns are concerned with the years in which these figures were measured. Okay, 1981, 1991 and 2001. Inside these columns you have the data, okay, and the data is for the number of people who actually visited in those years. And 2.6 or 1.9 is in millions. Okay, so from the key we can see the actual multiples who visited. Okay, so it's not 2.9 visitors, which would be quite strange. I don't know if you can get 0.9 of a person, but it's 2.9, 2.6, 3.2 million. Okay. If you look closer in this table, you've got this expression NA. NA means not available. The Tate Modern is a gallery which only opened in May 2000, okay? So therefore, before the year 2000, and in our case 2001, there were no visitors there because the gallery didn't exist. So that's why we've only got figures for one of the years. Now, on the left-hand side, you've got the rows, and the rows will tell you which museum the data is referring to, in which year. So we've got 6 museums and galleries here. And if you look at the last 2 museums, the Natural History Museum and the Science Museum, there is a little asterisk beside it which directs your attention to the footnote. And the footnote explains a little bit more about those museums and galleries. And for these 2 museums and galleries, it's the fact that they were no longer free in the 1980s, so the museums felt the need to charge visitors, which was quite controversial at the time because traditionally in Britain museums and galleries like to be free for everyone, okay, and people would go along and they would give a small donation but they wouldn't pay to enter. However, these 2 museums felt the need to introduce admission charges, obviously because of lack in revenue, lack of funds to keep the museums going. Okay, so and that's explained in the footnote. Now, looking closely at the data in this table, we can see that the table presents it conveniently for us in terms of paragraphing into 3 different sections. Okay, this first section, which I have a red box over, the trend is upwards. Okay, just look at the first year and the last year, and you can see that the